Hello everybody and welcome to my review of volume number 7 of Gakuto Mikumo's light novel series, Strike the Blood. Now this one is put out in English by Yen On. If you'd like to pick up your copy and support the channel, I've got links to Amazon.com and the book depository in the description down below. Now this one blessedly changes our routine. Pretty much up until this point, Strike the Blood has consisted of bad guy gets introduced, bad guy kicks Kojo's butt, round 2, Kojo bites girl, Kojo gets powerful, Kojo wins. And that's been pretty much the routine up until this point. Now, I was pretty excited about this volume, though, because the one mystery that has been going on for the past 6 volumes that I have been kind of invested in is just what's going on with Kojo's sister Nagisa. And how did Kojo become the 4th primogenitor? Well, we finally start getting some of those answers here in volume number 7. It's worth pointing out, though, that we don't get everything, and it's pretty clear that the revelations are going to continue into volume number 8. So it's not over yet. If you were thinking that this was going to reveal everything, it most certainly doesn't, but it does reveal quite a bit. So the book is split into 3 distinct sections. In the first section, we are 4 years before the events of the story, the main story, and it shows the incident that Kojo and Nagisa were involved in that resulted in Nagisa's injuries and first introduced these pair to the thing of vampires and primogenitors. In the main story, when we come back in the second part, it's rejoining sort of the main story timeline, and there is a mysterious vampire who seems to be tailing Kojo, and she looks an awful lot like the 4th primogenitor. This results, of course, in at least some battles, a little bit return to the status quo of Strike the Blood, but there's enough that feels different about the whole thing that it works, and it works sort of in context of this story, kind of taking a look at what exactly is the 4th primogenitor. And then finally, in the last part, the third part, we get the backstory of Yaze, so Kojo's best friend. Yaze, of course, we know at this point is sort of observing Kojo. We find out sort of why that is. We get a bit more information, and a element is revealed or sort of introduced in that story that I'm sure is going to play a much bigger and more key point in volume number 8 and probably relate in some way to why Kojo has become the 4th primogenitor. So I've already said that the book tells the story in a different way, that it kind of breaks things up over these different time periods. And for me, that really started to work. Again, you know, this is, for one thing, it excited me because I'm like, we're finding out more about what's actually been going on. We're getting backstory. There's a bit more world building going on. And I think the other thing that I liked about this volume is that for the first time in this series, it starts to introduce ideas and concepts that make me feel like there's a bigger story going on. That it isn't just, you know, like up until this point, I would say that this series has pretty much just been, you know, Kojo and Yukina's day-to-day, and you're kind of like, when is he going to hook up with Yukina or Saigi? You know, when's that going to happen? Like, really, that's the only sort of overarching story of this whole thing of like, you know, when are these guys just going to hook up? Because really, that's it. But in this one, we start getting the sense of a bigger story. We start actually getting the idea of what purpose the 4th primogenitor serves, why it even exists, because remember, we've been told for a long time that it's sort of an anomaly. And then we also get this sort of idea that there's something bigger going on and something bigger coming, and, you know, something that is going to be a much larger and more ongoing story than something that's just going to get solved in a volume or 2. And for me, I think that's always been the thing that I've thought that this series needed. It needed something that was providing more of a direction. It needed to feel less of like a monster of the week type story where there's really no end game in sight, that there's no larger picture going on, that, you know, once we found out why Kojo was the fourth primogenitor, I mean, outside of that, you know, I didn't really think there was much of a bigger story going on. And I think that's why I was excited to find out that backstory. Not only because I like backstory, I mean, that's kind of a thing for me, but also because, to me, I kind of felt like once we start getting into that, that's where we're going to find out what the story is actually about. We're going to start getting a honest-to-God, large arc that makes these characters' actions a lot more meaningful outside of just the, well, we survived today, we'll see what comes at us tomorrow. I also appreciated the fact that we focused more on Yase's character. He has been very much of a background character, not given a whole lot of development, and having him have his own chapter in this, I really liked. Like I said, it gave a lot more of a backstory to him. It gave much more, it helped flesh out his motivations for what he's doing. So the book sort of worked on a lot of levels. I mean, we know who Yukina is. We know who Kojo is, but now we're finding out a lot more about his character. Even Nagisa, we find out quite a lot about who she is and perhaps why she's been experiencing the things that she has over these first 6 volumes. As I said, this volume really goes a long way to developing backstory, to sort of giving us the root causes of a lot of the things that have been happening, and then provides us with that overarching story that I've really been longing for in this series. Now, again, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the writing style of Strike the Blood, I will admit. I do find the author's style a little bit pedantic, and he has a habit of stating the obvious. You know, like a character, when Yukina appears with her big spear, it's like, it was Yukina, the sword shaman from the Lion King agency. Well, no guff, buddy, I know. I know by now. I mean, God, she's on every single cover of this flippin' series. I know. Like, that kind of stuff, I don't know. Like, the writing is a little bit amateurish. Now, that said, the actual action sequences are fairly well executed, so I don't really understand why that is exactly, that some parts are well written and other parts kind of seem to suffer a little bit. But I mean, if the writing style has been a huge beef for you in this series, well, this book really doesn't fix that, but it does, as I said, fix a lot of the story issues that I have had with the series to date. And it does, like I said, introduce quite a few things that I'm glad that I ordered volume number 8. I had said previously that I was going to read this one first and see how I felt about it, and then I would decide, but I did order it mainly based on the fact that a lot of other reviewers stated that this was a decent volume, and I'm glad I did, because as I said, this one does not solve everything. It very much leaves the door open that volume number 8 is going to have more revelations about what exactly is going on. You know, this one just begins to scratch the surface of Kojo himself starting to realize what's been going on and to sort of regain his memories of what's been going on and why he's in the situation he's in. So if you expected this one to be the tell-all, it's not, but certainly starts off on a great foot, certainly gives us a lot of really cool little hints and tidbits and reveals, and leads us into volume number 8, which I think is going to be sort of the bigger picture reveal of the whole series. And I'm really hoping that it kind of continues on with what this book has done and, you know, mixes things up a little bit and has sort of different stories going on and introducing us to other side characters. I mean, in this book, we actually meet Nagisa and Kojo's dad, which was kind of cool because, of course, we've met the mom and it was kind of like, well, I wonder what their dad's like. Well, now we know. And actually, he's kind of a cool figure too. I'd like to see a bit more of him as well. So, like I said, some solid character building on characters who have really just been in the background for a long time. A couple of interesting new characters doing things that, like I said, I've really wanted from this series for a while now. So I'm very hopeful to see what volume number 8 is like and to see if this sort of trend continues. I'm really hoping that this larger overarching story that I've sort of said is revealed in this one doesn't just turn out to be a red herring and gets solved within a book. But nonetheless, volume number 7 of Strike the Blood, a very good book at this point, probably a highlight of the series overall. And it's kind of funny because I think it's actually one of the shortest volumes in the series, but maybe that says something too, not as much filler. I don't know. But those are my thoughts on volume number 7 of Strike the Blood. Now, of course, I've been talking in my previous videos about my massive to-be-read pile, and also on this channel, I really try to do my best to at least read one volume from as many different series as I can. So I was trying to figure out what I should read next, and so I went to my patrons on patreon.com, and I asked them, I said, okay, here's 5 titles that I'm considering reading next. Which one should I read? And I let my patrons vote, and they decided on volume number 1 of Mixed Bathing in Another Dimension. I can't help but feel that this is because of my previous comments on ASCII type material. But I will say this, at least this title pretty much promises me exactly what to expect right from the get-go. And this series has actually been ongoing for a while. J-Novel Club, I'm trying to think, I think they've put out at least 6 volumes, I want to say, maybe even more, but this is kind of a big gaping hole in my volume 1's kind of thing, because like I said, it's an ongoing series and I have not read a single volume. And so my patrons, thank you very much for your input. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/JustusRStone, and you too can help me decide what to read on a regular basis. So if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, you should consider subscribing. I do 2 to 3 reviews every single week, as well as a weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.